Hello and welcome to another episode of an Unexpected Podcast. My name is Tim, and with me as always we have Matt and Mick. Evan will be joining us on a little bit later in the episode. In this week's episode, we're not going over a list, but we will be going over lists. Basically, the ITC lists have come out. And
ITC?
ETC, I apologize. ETC lists have come out. And we're going to go over...
Just out of curiosity, ETC is what, the European Team Championship?
Technically, it's the European Team Championships, yeah. But there are participants from all over the world this year.
Yeah, including like the United Arab Emirates.
The United Arab Emirates, that's right, yeah.
Which when I last checked the map was not in Europe, but
no, but I think because of COVID and because of the pandemic and like various organizational things, they've opened it up to participants from all over the world. So I think going forward, perhaps, I don't know, it might become like a world sort of tournament, but I don't really know.
So ITC would then be correct. We could call it
international.
All right,
yeah.
Tim, you're on the cutting edge.
Yeah, I mean, if it was international team tournament, team championship, then at least it would be different than the Articon World Team Championships.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, there could be that. But yeah, we'll see. I guess we're gonna find out in like a couple of weeks when they make announcements.
So it'll kind of be like the World Cup, even though it kind of already is the World Cup of miniatures in a sense.
Well, it looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. All right. But we'll be going over those lists. We have them all available, and then we're going to go over the new Easterling models that they produce the profiles and what they'll basically be doing, even though we don't have the points values. We'll be going over the Dragon Emperor and the special rules that come with him. So we're going to go over to that first. And what I really like is we'll start off with just what the book looks like. So initial thoughts, Dane on the front, Defense of the North, obviously, is what we'll have. I think it looks pretty good. But this is obviously what we're here to talk about. I still think this is arguably one of the best looking models that they've ever produced. I like we talked about in the previous episode where we talked about the Dragon Emperor. I think the Easterling armor just looks amazing, and obviously we talked about how some people don't like it. I don't understand how you couldn't like the aesthetics of this model. It looks so incredible, and then a great pose for the regular warrior himself on foot. But we're going to go over what they added,
and more important, which one of our predictions were correct.
Yes.
As to what this figure would have, because that's what we know everybody's really talking about.
So the first thing to talk about is he is a hero of legend.
We predicted it.
Yay.
Actually, I think we may actually have known that, but anyway.
And so we have a little description here. As the leader of the warrior culture, the Dragon Emperor is an exceptional fighter in his own right with a fight value of 6, which a lot of us didn't think he was going to get fight 6 because we thought it might be a little up there because, you had a model that we thought was going to have a lot of buffing effects, which we'll get into. So he has
somebody predicted it, though. I think Rainier predicted it, so we need to give him a ding for that.
Check mark.
Yep, exactly.
3 attacks, awesome. 3 might, and he has access to heroic strike and an elven weapon in the form of a glaive. And they add a little belong to an elven lord slain by him. And he can go, and they say he can go toe-to-toe with best heroes, which obviously fight 6 with 3 attacks, 3 might, and strike with an elven weapon. We'll do that for you.
He's probably like defense 7 too, with all that armor on him.
There's very good chance. I mean, the shield makes me think without a shield, he makes me think he might be 6, which would make him.
That's such big armor.
Yeah, but he's going to have some other defensive benefits.
Yeah,
that they're going to talk about later.
Yeah. His Emperor of the Easterling special rule means that the Easterling models can benefit from his standfast, and then that includes Easterling heroes regardless of range as well. So it's a map-wide standfast that affects even the heroes, which, especially in a scenario like Reconnoiter, where you might have those few models that are just about to get off the board and you really need them to stay on to get the points. I mean, as long as he stays alive, that they're going to be able to get off the board, which can be monumental, I think, as we all know. And especially if you need to just charge certain things that turn when you're broken, and so the stand fast is going to be incredibly useful for the East.
Well, that's as long as the friendly heroes and models can see him. So it's gonna be super useful when he's on the Palanquin.
Yes.
But if he's just a warrior, then there's gonna be situations where like you don't benefit from it because you're somewhere on the other side of the world and there's a tree or something else blocking line of sight.
I have, I'm not seeing that if you can see him thing here. I also have a vague memory that was somewhere.
I thought that was the actual normal rule that like to benefit from stand fast, you have to see the hero.
You have to see the hero. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Is that right? I don't know. I can't remember that.
Yeah, I might just have a quick check.
But
it's such a big model that it's such a big model that there's a very good chance that the model will be able to see it anyway, unless, for example, like Mick said, which he's checking on to make sure that you'll be able to see a part of the model, which would mean you're in range. So more than likely, 99% of the time, you're going to be able to get affected by the stand fast, I would say. He is carried into battle on his Palanquin completely with war gear, which brings a number of special rules, which they're going to get into. Okay, so he's carried by 6 black dragons, which of course mean they're fight 4, and they have a courage of 4. While it's on the dragon's mount, it does not function like cavalry, so it doesn't get like a charge bonus kind of a thing. Like you can't, knock people down with it. It's more like
I don't see why not if that thing ran into you, but anyway.
Well, I don't know how fast
itself down.
I'm not sure you're running into people very quickly with that, though. To be honest with you, you're probably running at like 3 miles an hour carrying that.
I don't know. Those guys look like they're keeping up a decent trot there with him.
They're gonna have movement 6 at least on that thing.
Yes, they should probably.
Which obviously is gonna be quicker than like dwarves and hobbits who are not carrying anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also force equals mass times velocity, and its velocity is 6 inches. It's got a heck of a lot of mass, but anyway, I think more than a horse. But
definitely.
What I found so interesting, so says it works more like an infantry model, defensive 6 and 6 wounds, 1 for each of the black dragon.
Ding, we got that one.
Well, what I found, this is just a small little thing I noticed, which I think is kind of funny. Is their defense 6, which would imply that they have, shields, because the regular infantry models need the shield to get to defense 6, but they have their shields just on the Palanquin, just hanging out. So they're essentially defense 6, but they don't have to technically carry their shield. They just have to attach it to the Palanquin.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I guess
the shield's nearby.
Yeah, they probably don't benefit from shielding though.
That's what this is another question, right? Do they get, even though they're defense 6, they don't technically have a shield equipped. So, do they actually get the ability to do so? And so that's going to bring up a question.
Unless it's like those buff guys that the acolytes, and like they were like I think defense 4 without any armor. So with heavy armor they'd be defense 6. So maybe it's these guys.
Yeah, I mean that could be. It's not just the metal. It's the abs underneath it that provide the armor.
Yeah,
I mean that's got to do wonder. Hauling that thing around has got to do wonders for your core strength. So maybe that's what it's all about.
That's why they're so tough, because they're carrying that around for 8 hours of the day in the hot sun.
Although like every time like you see a funeral procession, like I can't really see people running with like a coffin on their shoulders. So like I can't really see how people would be running with this massive thing on their shoulders.
I can't imagine you could run with this. The weight of the thing itself plus him on top. I mean, no way you could run. And you make a great example with the coffin. There's no way that people could realistically run that quick at all. First of all, they'd have to. I mean, let's take 6 people, for example, with that scenario. There's no way you could really run with a coffin with 6 people unless everybody's super strong. But
and then you have to synchronize everybody.
Yes, exactly. Everybody would have to. So it's
I mean, I will say this. It's actually kind of funny. There was a historical example of this, which was so the Battle of Marathon was fought in Greece between the Athenians and the Persians, and there was an account written that the battle started out with, I think it was with the Greek hoplite phalanx basically charging at a run across the beach. And I think it was for like a mile or something like that. And there was this one archaeology professor who said this couldn't possibly have happened. This needed to be apocryphal. And what he did is he got himself dressed up in mock hoplite armor, and ran across the beach and said that this couldn't possibly have happened because he was exhausted after running the first 100 yards. He was, I think, at the time like a 70-year-old archaeology professor, which just goes to prove that 70-year-old archaeology professors will get exhausted when they dress up in armor and try and run more than 100 yards. And I'm just sitting here thinking about how a bunch of out of shape wargamers are kind of like sitting here talking about how this is clearly impossible to get dressed up in armor and then carry this thing at a run. But I think we're underselling the athletic capabilities of the Easterling Black Dragons here. I mean, this is something they trained for all their lives.
Yeah, but I mean, they do have strength 3, so.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
how tough can they be?
They have lower strength than Galadriel does, for example.
Well, yeah, okay, but I mean, Forlong the Fat doesn't Forlong the Fat have like strength 5 or something like that?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And I don't see him getting dressed up in armor and then carrying this thing more than 100 yards or so. So
I'm not gonna lie, Mick pulled out the ultimate checkmate in my book. I mean, that was just that was great. But they have strength 3.
Well, that's the thing. Unless Easterlings finally get strength 4, at which point, sure, give it to them. But if they're gonna be just strength 3, like most warriors in this game probably wouldn't be able to carry this. So like if you look at the average population, and since they have strength 3, so they come from the average population. Like, come on. Like, they wouldn't manage more than a few hundred meters.
All right, fine. I'll shut up about it. Except to say that we predicted the 6 wounds, 1 for each Black Dragon carrying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
then
movement should be taken down every time a wound is taken. Because
one wonders about that. That would seem to make sense until you're down to like the one guy left who's like dragging the thing along the ground at 1 inch turn. And the Black Dragon Emperors, they're like bashing him with the glaive going, go faster. But anyway, apparently that's a thing.
Now, this may not be the main attraction to this, but I think this is probably one of my favorite things about the model. So for the shooting tests on a 5+, you hit the Emperor. Anything below, you'll hit the Palanquin.
Poor idiots dragging him around. Yep.
Yeah. This is where it gets really interesting. We've never really seen anything like this, unless I'm just not thinking of it.
No, it's just a fell beast. So like on 1 to 5, you hit the fell beast, right?
No. Tim's anticipating the next rule.
I'm anticipating the next.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So the Palanquin make strikes equal to the number of wounds it has remaining. This means it can dish out to 9 strikes after winning combat, 3 from strength 4 and 6 strength 3 hits from his porters.
Well, see, they do have strength 3 after all.
So what this really is unique about this is not only are you rolling 9 dice, but if you manage to get something trapped or on the ground, you have 18 strikes potentially at something. And I cannot imagine, no matter who the hero is, besides something being ridiculously wounds-wise, that you would not take that out if you're able to trap a model with that many strikes. 18 dice and
something really high defense could survive.
Yeah, they're only strength 3 too. So.
I know, but you more than likely you're going to need 6s. So if you roll 12 dice needing 6s, you should get at least 2. And so then you have another 6 at strength 4, and that's not including the other models that are then going to attack because it's trapped around the ground. So more than likely, you're going to kill something probably at least 9 out of 10 times if you get something trapped with this thing.
It's really going to be fun is if you have Borgir cast Enchanted Blades on this thing.
Oh my gosh. That would be devastating if you put enchanted blades on him in a turn in which someone was.
Oh yeah, actually, what if you were to cast a blade draft on it? Would they all be striking at strength 6?
I think. Well, I mean, unless there's some sort of caveat written into the special rule that says that Blade Wrath, spells like Blade Wrath and Enchanted Blade don't work for these extra attacks, then presumably yes. So yeah, you could get 9 strength 6 attacks out of this thing.
And at that point, yes, then it's dead. But it's really unique in the fact that you lose attacks as they die. So you kind of have to choose if you want to attack the hero or the porters carrying him, and so it'll really make for a unique decision making in game. For
actually, isn't that the same for Gulavar or the Watcher in the Water?
I was just going to say, a pedant might say that it's not entirely unique.
It's not entirely unique.
I just mean, well, I guess the best way to put it is for the Watcher is probably the closest comparison. I guess is the best way, because you lose the tentacles as they.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably, yeah. I told you, if I forget another model, I just making the assumption that it's the one of a kind, but I don't think about every single model. The other rule, which we'll get into, is he counts as a banner with a range of 12 inches.
Bing, we called that one too.
Yeah, a 12-inch banner. I mean, you got that Immerhill effect. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am. I don't believe there's an evil model who does this.
A 12-inch banner?
Yeah.
No, I think it's 6 is most.
Yeah, I think this is the first.
So it is 6.
Yes. So this is the first evil model who does a 12-inch banner. So very, very unique in that regard. But also, friendly Easterling models within 6 inches of it will gain a +1 to their fight value.
Yep. Bing, 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 bing. We called that one. I think I specifically called that one based on some making them fight language that they did in the other one. And I think this was for me the kind of the most important effect that comes out of this guy, just because, as I think I said in the last one, Fight 5 is kind of the bane of the Easterlings, because they depend on these high number of die roll versus high number of die roll fights, and having the higher fight value has a disproportionate effect on those fights. And being able to get these guys up to Fight 5, I think is going to be tremendous for these guys.
So the reason why Matt is talking about them being Fight 5 is, we'll go into this really quickly. Easterling warriors and Easterling cataphracts and warbands led by the Dragon Emperor or Easterling Dragon Knights do not need to pay the points to be upgraded with Black Dragons. Now, this in itself, saying that they don't need to pay for Black Dragons, is an amazing rule by itself. But if you wanted to pay for extra Black Dragons, then you could get a whole army, theoretically, of Black Dragons in the front or back or both. And then as long as they're within 6 inches of the Emperor, because they're naturally Fight 4 with the Black Dragon upgrade, they then go up to Fight 5. So you could have essentially almost elves in the front rank, because they would have the same fight value. They'd have 1 less courage, but then they'd have defense 6 and strength 3. So you almost have an exact elf in your army when they're within 6 inches of him. And I think the key thing for this guy is most of these buffs where you see where it's like, oh, anybody within 3 inches, he's a 6-inch range. So that's 2 warbands that can get that effect essentially. And if you were to maneuver things correctly, you could theoretically almost fit in 2.5, maybe if you were lucky, depending on where they were, 3 warbands that could all be Fight 5 at the same time. But being able to include Black Dragons in his warband for free without having to pay those 2 points is super, super underrated. So correct me if I'm wrong.
But before we say it, we should clarify that for those of us who are listening, the rule we are looking at on the screen, the Dragon Cults rule, which is the rule that allows the Dragon Emperor to get Black Dragons in his warband for free. My understanding is that comes with the Legendary Legion that this guy is going to be a part of. That is not inherent in his profile. So if you're taking this guy in the Legendary Legion, then one of the Legendary Legion bonuses that you get is you get to take black dragons in his warband for free. Am I right about that? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think it says
That's
black dragons.
probably the case.
Black dragons in particular will be a regular feature of this list when they're talking about legendary legions. So I believe you're right. I think you're right in saying that it's specifically for the legendary legions of Easterlings for this. So I suppose if you wanted to let me ask you this, Matt. If you didn't want to ally, is there ever a reason not to take the legendary legion, depending on the other rules that we'll eventually hear? But knowing that,
I mean, I suspect Kamul and Amdur aren't going to be in it.
So okay, so yeah, it would depend on what is included in the new.
Yeah, it depends what heroes you want to include, but the really interesting point for me is going to be what the points level of this guy is, because he comes with huge army-wide buffs, with the stand fast, and more importantly, the 12-inch banner and the 6-inch +1 to fight value across the board. But he also comes with hidden cost savings too. I mean, I think we were, we predicted, I think, most of the things this guy ended up coming equipped with based on the cryptic hints that were given in the last article on this guy. And I think we had pegged his points at about 200, we were thinking. But the way they have set this up, there are a lot of hidden cost savings with this model. Like, for example, I mean, you don't need to buy a banner anymore. That's 25 points if you get this guy. And assuming you're going to pack his warband full of black dragons in the Legendary Legion, which I assume you will, then you're saving 36 points on black dragons upgrades by cramming 18 black dragons into his warband. So that's 61 points you're not spending someplace else. Which if you run the math on this guy, Evan and I sat down and kind of mocked up some lists on this using this special rule from the Legendary Legion, and came out with an army that contains, with the assumption that this guy costs 200 points, an army that contains this guy, Rutabi, and Borgir at 800 points. You can take out to like 45 models, and that's 45 models with basically 1/3 of the entire phalanx is black dragons. I think there's like you can have a half dozen cataphracts in there who are all black dragons, because they're all going to come in this guy's warbands. So it's not even a cheaped out 45 model listed at 800 points. It's a Easterling army with all the bells and whistles in it, at 800 points and 45 models, which is pretty good considering the power of the hitters that are going to be in that list too.
I think what's really, let me ask you this, because we assume he's 200 points, because that sounds about right to us based on.
I'd give him like 225 after.
See, this is what.
I'm wondering about that too. Whether, given kind of the points cost benefits he gives, whether he ends up being higher. But I mean, we'll see.
What is the hearing this profile, because we basically have the entire profile almost. There might be something hidden that we don't know about, but we've got about 90% of the profile. What is the most amount of points that you would pay for him in a game where you go, I would still take this guy? If it got to this point, you wouldn't take him anymore. What would you say the points value is?
Well, I don't want to put that out there, because then GW is going to take that as the starting point in negotiations. I mean, okay, 3. The most I'd ever pay is 3. Yeah, that's right.
300, yeah.
Yeah. You know what's?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd take. I think if he ended up being 225, I think I'd probably still take him. Once he gets kind of above 225, I'd have to really start to think about it. But I think if he's at 200, I'm definitely going to take him. I think if he's probably at the 225 point, I'm probably going to take him. And then above that, that's when you start to think.
Like if you compare it to something like Elisar, he's 240. People still take him, but he's got amazing rules.
Yeah.
If this guy has amazing rules, then sure.
My limit was in my head, I had it at 250 because 250 is a whole bunch of points where you kind of go, okay, is it really worth it at 250 to take this guy, kind of, even though he has all these special rules? So I think if he goes above 250 for me, I'm gonna have to say no to, because it's so many points for one model. And even though
and it's a model with a vulnerability.
Yes.
Because unlike LSR, who kind of keeps all of his banner abilities and special abilities until he's dead, it seems like a lot of this guy's special abilities are keyed on his Palanquin. And if he gets knocked off his Palanquin, and if it functions as a mount, that can happen basically, on a hurl. Then you could end up spending 250 points for a guy who suddenly becomes worth like 150 points or perhaps less as soon as he gets knocked off his Palanquin. And although I suppose you get, some of those riders or some of those guys carrying him back as additional figures.
Yeah, so. I wonder if you would actually get those 2 models, those 6 models from there, or if they would just disappear with the chair.
So I think there was something not in this article, but there was something in the original article that says you can at least choose to dismount him and get those 6 guys.
Right.
Which brought his warband up to 24 guys. I don't know whether, what I don't know is if this thing gets knocked flying, what happens to all the other guys.
Actually, it'd be cool if you were able to dismount and then put the Palanquin down and then just treat it as a piece of terrain that you have to destroy if you want to move through it.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, or else you'd see like a dismounted Palanquin model
everywhere all the time.
I mean, there was that they were selling. I mean, I think this thing is gonna.
Well, no, because you could actually just keep the same model, put a counter on it, say that it's dismounted, move with all these other guys around. And
you could do it, but GW doesn't work that way.
No.
Whenever there's a special ability that keys off of something like that, where something retains on the board, they're gonna sell you that thing, right?
Yeah.
But what I guess is interesting to me, and nobody's really resolved, is does this thing count as 7 models in your army list total?
Well, because we were debating this on the last one, which is, does he get to essentially take 24 models? If they wanted to, dismount from the Palanquin, like they wanted to just veer off, essentially, does he get 24?
Well, so that seems to be what they were saying in the previous one, where he's going to get what's kind of unclear is whether or not those models count, right?
Yeah.
Or whether it's like the Warg Marauder, where, when the guys get off, it still only counts as 1, essentially, in Gimli speak. Because that's something else that also kind of factors into the point value. If instead of when we were doing up our list and we came to a 45 model count with this guy at 200 points, that was assuming that it only counts as 1. If in fact it's a 51 model army at 200 points, then I would pay more for that if what I was actually getting was not 1 model with 7 with 6 wounds plus 3 wounds, but in fact 7 models, one of which was a general. I would certainly pay more for that.
What's going to interest me the most is how much the Palanquin costs as an upgrade. So how much, if you just wanted to take him and add more troops to him, how much is he on foot? That's what I'm really interested to see, how much he is on foot. Because if
I'm not sure that's an option.
You think it's going to be mandatory to take the Palanquin?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be mandatory.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Look, Tim, if you were the Dragon Emperor, would you ever go anywhere with that?
Yeah. Sounds like another checkmate I'm hearing,
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was in the army, I was a tanker, and we had an informal the tankers had an informal model of death before dismount, and I'm wondering if this guy has the same model or same motto.
Is there another model in the game that I can't think of? Is there another model where you're forced to take a mount?
Yeah, the Golden King.
Oh, that's well. I guess
although you can't dismount.
Right.
I guess that's true. I mean, it kind of works as one model though, so I don't know that like you see what I'm saying, because the Golden King still uses one profile no matter what kind of a situation. So I don't like the Palanquin can essentially separate. It seems like, so I don't know because if in my theory of it, where he
the Dwarven Chariot is another one.
Lumax.
Chariot. Yeah, Lumax.
Yeah, but you could take those, because the Dwarven Chariot, what is 3 dwarves and then a king, right? Or a captain? Is that correct?
Captain,
yeah.
Well, sometimes it's a captain, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's a guy.
Maybe this is just a me thing where you can take those models on foot separately, so it kind of it's like an upgrade kind of to me. But that might just be a personal thing. And maybe this is just me thinking that if he was able to only be taken on Palanquin, I would personally treat this as the only model in the game that can't be dismounted, or you can't choose it on foot, I should say.
I mean, you can just dismount him on turn 1 and then.
Well, yes, but then you're paying for
like
those
that.
points.
Yeah,
all those points just for that.
This thing turns into, thanks for getting me to the battle, guys. I'm getting off now.
I want to bring up one more little point before we get into the lists. I think a really underrated thing about this, especially the Legendary Legion, is because you get the Black Dragon. So obviously the Cataphracts are going to be really good when they're within range, because they'll be fight 5. But you take a drummer with them as well for a 15-point upgrade on the Cataphract. And so then you get essentially a heroic march every turn. And then you don't have to pay that many points. I think it's 15 points for the drum for the Cataphract as well.
Yeah, and then, those guys are going to be running faster than horses with this flanking on their backs.
Guys, let's get a go! Come on, we're sounding the drums. but so I think this army, especially depending on what the Legendary Legion allows, but if you get fight 5 with these guys, plus the we talk about the free upgrade is obviously for the Legendary Legion. You could pay for the upgrade for the regular Dragon Knights if you wanted to and still get the fight 5 benefits. I'm not sure how many people would do that just because of the cost effectiveness of it. But if you wanted to, let's take for the Legendary Legion, for example, you get a fight 5, a lot of troops that fight 5, courage 4 for a lot of them. You get fight 5 cavalry that can then also provide you the ability to drum at a very cost-effective points value, but then you think they'd keep the Glittering Horde rule if they like the +1 defense essentially?
Oh, wow. I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, that is something I was thinking about, is buying this guy with a warband of like 18 Cataphracts.
I mean, it would be really, really good if you did that.
A query whether they could actually all fit within 12 inches. I haven't done kind of the geometrical diagram on this, but I mean, it would be interesting because, look, a 14-point fight 5 Cataphract is worth the points, right? And it's well worth the points.
Yes.
And
especially when it moves 15 as well.
Yeah. Especially when it moves 15 as well. And it would be interesting to see Cataphract, like a Cataphract unit that's actually like fighting in ranks because it can.
What's really interesting about this as well, though, is if you look, this is just a weird hypothetical. Don't know how this would do actually, but if you took all Cataphracts, you still have a 12-inch banner, and if you're within 6 inches, they're fight 5. So
yeah, no, I mean that's essentially what I'm thinking is. I mean, you could take like an entire Cataphract army out of this. 18 of them Black Dragons for free, and
because they'd have defense if the shield wall, basically, if the Glittering Horde stayed, they'd have defense 6 horses if they moved up properly, and defense 7 warriors. So shooting wouldn't be nearly as big of an issue. So they move 15 inches forward at a turn, just blocking a lot of the arrows. And then when they charge in, they all have a banner essentially, and probably half of them.
And they're fight 5.
Exactly.
I mean, you could probably put this guy like behind the center of that thing, and I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of shield walls that are going to resist, fight 5 bannered cavalry, basically that's, a foot plus wide.
Yeah.
So
there's still only 3 though.
There's still only 3. Yeah, but
you could feint if.
But when you're winning every fight, right?
Sure.
Some guys are going to die.
Sure. Oh, if we just go back quickly to the stand fast thing, yeah, I was just checking the rules. You have to be able to see the hero.
You have to be able to see him. Okay.
Got it. All right.
So, but like we said, more than likely you'll be able to see the Palanquin at some point, unless like Mick said, a tree's blocking complete line of sight.
Yeah, so, it's just the issue if you dismount and then you go somewhere else, then it might not be as beneficial.
Yeah, this isn't a guy where I think you want to dismount and then hide him, in a building.
Hopefully, it would be really interesting if they affected his movement because of how many people he's carrying. Like if he was like a 5-inch movement or something like that. But more than likely, that's not going to happen. So, let's talk about this really quickly, and then we'll get into the list. Base size, is that going to be an issue, or you think not as big of an issue?
Because if you put him sideways, then you get longer banner range and more benefit to fight.
Why isn't it a round base?
It looks like a round base.
I thought it was like an oval base.
No. I think it's a 60 mil round base.
It's a round base. Okay. Well, in that case, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think you're okay for the same reason that any troll with 3 points of might and its own banner is going to be okay, which is that he can take on a bunch of enemies. I mean, I think ideally, unless there's something that's going to hurl through him that's around, I think this guy just kind of like sits in the middle of a banner line, in the middle of a battle line, so we can't get flanked, and he gives its bonuses out on both sides. The interesting thing is going to be how you employ him when there is something that A, flies and B, hurls, because you could lose a lot of his special abilities to a ring wraith that flies to the wrong place and like happens to hurl random phalangite through this. And he provides enough bonuses that I could see this guy kind of hanging out safely behind the line somewhere so that you can't hurl through him from the front, and then kind of goes running up on one flank and the other to counter the big bad. I think you could probably do that with this guy, because you keep him back behind the phalanx just in enough range to give the black dragon sitting at the back of that phalanx up to fight 5 until you're ready to commit him safely.
Do you think you're gonna be able to black dart a mount in this? Like to actually specifically black dart one of the carriers instead of the model itself?
Well, I mean,
the rider.
I think you can. I'm not sure that's really the best use of will, considering there's 6 of them.
Yeah, but I mean,
it'll take you a long time.
if there was one final one, you could just take him out with like a sneaky black dart.
But I mean, I really don't think kind of trying to take this mount out through shooting is really the way to go, because that's going to, I mean, it's going to be sitting behind a bunch of guys most of the time, and B, it's going to take you a while before you do that. And I don't think this guy cares if he loses 2 or 3 of these guys.
Probably not, no.
Unless there's some impact on how far he can move, but nothing we've seen indicates that's the case. So, but yeah, I mean, look, if a ring wraith is running around trying to black dart this guy's porters, I think the Easterling player is going to be perfectly happy with that expenditure of resources.
All right. So let us know in the comments section if you're excited for the Dragon Emperor. Are you going to pick him up? Are you going to try to play him in the list? Especially, are you going to wait for the Legendary Legion to come out before you make the decision? Just let us know all this interesting stuff in the comments below about if you're excited and what you're going to do with the new Emperor. We're going to move on to the main topic, which is the ETC list. All right, so now we're going to get into the ETC. So really quickly, because we have 120 lists to go through quickly, we're going to go over the pool system. So this is how each group gets to determine things. So it gives a little bit of strategy to each team. So there's 4 people on each team, and each team has 5 lists. Technically, we'll get into that in a little bit. The first step is both teams have 4 players unassigned in their players pool, obviously. Both captains, so each team has a captain, secretly selects 1 player from their pool and reveal their choice simultaneously. So for example, I could pick Mick and someone could pick Evan. Each captain chooses 2 possible opponents for the opposing player. So essentially, we're going to take the podcast to make things easier. I could say I want Mick to play Rainier or Matt. And then let's say Devin was the captain for the other team. You'd say I want Evan to play Mick or Rob. And so they can only play those 2 people specifically.
Wait, because you just selected me twice. That's not how it works.
Wait, but no, because Rob or Devin could select Evan to play you theoretically, right?
Oh no. So like it's more complicated than that.
Is it? Okay.
So this only really works if you have 8 players. So essentially, imagine that the 3 of us plus, let's say, Matt are the team 1, and the opposing team, let's just say like 4 random players, number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So essentially, if I was a captain, I would pick, let's say, myself, and I would go forward. Then the opposing team would pick their 1 player, and that player would go forward. Then we would pick 2 of us to go against that opponent. Let's say we pick you and Evan. So then the opponent gets to choose who they want to play, and the person they didn't pick gets to play the 4th person on their team. So in the same way here, if let's say I was being put up against two of the opponents, then whoever I pick, I play against, and then the person I didn't pick gets to play against Matt, who wasn't picked in the original 3. So essentially, I get to select 2 players, and then the opposing team also gets to select 2 players. So like the thing is, like if you're only just like listening to this, it's probably super confusing. But like if you were to actually like take 8 models to like 4 per team and actually follow these steps, then it's actually relatively simple to pair people up. But essentially, the real benefit of this system is that you can have a list where the list itself might have some weaknesses, but it also has like, let's say you were playing something like a list with 4 Felbies in your army, which is actually a perfect example where that's what we did at the ETC back in 2018. We had one of our players, Ed, who had Felbies, and then essentially he would then get to pick one of the 2 opponents that the opposing team assigned to play against. So he would generally not pick Lady of Light, and then the Lady of Light would then play our 4th player. So like essentially one of your people gets to pick their matchup, and then everything else gets assigned accordingly afterwards.
Okay, so that seems to make sense. So for example, if we'll use the example, Matt, Evan, me, and you. I get chosen as one of the player by the captain. Mick, let's say you're the captain, and you choose player 1 and 2 for me, and the captain from the other team chooses Evan and Mick, and let's say that player was player 4. So player 4 would then choose Evan or Mick, and then correct me if I'm wrong. We then get to choose if Evan or that player plays Evan or Mick on our team, right? Is that correct?
Well, so basically, you get to choose who you're playing against out of the 2 that they've put forward.
Oh, they put 2 players forward.
Yeah. So like
okay, I got that mixed up. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say you have an army of Felbies. You are being put forward. Then the opposing team puts 2 players forward. You get to pick which one of these you are going to play against.
Okay.
Whilst the other one is going to play against the player which we haven't used to assign to their number 1 pick.
Okay, I get you. I had it backwards. I thought, for example, my thought was that you put 1 player forward and your opponent picks 2 players, or I'm sorry, you pick 2 players for your opponent to go against, and then your team gets to choose which of those two to go against the opponent. I had that backwards essentially. Now it makes sense. This might sound a little confusing because it kind of is to a certain extent, but essentially the premise is you put one player forward, you choose two of the players, and then you get to choose which of the two players you want to go against essentially.
Yeah.
If it doesn't make sense, again, we have it on screen if you want to go to YouTube to look at the description of how it's chosen. So that's a better visual in case you're listening.
There's actually a really cool thing I noticed in one of the countries here, where there are two lists that are pretty much identical. So in this case, whoever you were to pick to play against, you would play one of those same lists anyway. So I think there may be some sort of like system gaming going on from one of the countries here, which is quite interesting, I thought. So anyway, let's just move.
Three guesses which of the countries that is, but let's move on to the list.
All right. So
yeah, there are multiple assault on Helm's Deep legions within the same country.
So because we have 120 lists to go over, we're not going to go into detail at all. Pretty much, we're going to read out the list. And then if we have comments on it, so for example, if there's multiple lists that have the same thing, we're just basically going to read the list and then move on.
Oh yeah, there's actually another point to notice. So there's 24 teams. So between 4 players, that will give us 96 lists. But there are 24 additional lists, which are the sort of like the dummy list. So basically, each country submits 5 lists. They will only pick to play 4 of them, but this is to like either confuse the opponents. And also, it's sort of a backup situation. If, let's say, one of your players couldn't make it, then whoever they take has a choice of 2 lists to play.
Yeah, so they just make it so that people couldn't absolutely game their lists around all the other different opponents they may face. So like I said, we're going to go over the lists really quickly. If someone wants to comment, we can, but we have so many lists to go over that we're going to do this quickly. So we're going to go into Team England first. So the first list has, and keep in mind, this is all at 800 points. So, the usual points value, at least in the US, is what we go by. So 42 troops in this army, leaders Rutabi, and it has Rutabi with Easterling warriors. They're upgraded to Black Dragon. It has the Mathasauron with Moranans. It has Razgush with a Bat Swarm and 2 Fell Wargs. It has Musgur with 4 Orc Trackers, 1 on Warg, and Kardush with 3 Orc Trackers and 1 on Warg. Really interesting list because these are a lot of the new models involved in this. And I don't know, it should be interesting. I think it'll be that list where it kind of surprises everyone because, nobody's played against a lot of these models. So it should be a really interesting thing to go against your opponent. But that is England team list 1. So we'll move over to Evan next.
Yeah, so here I think you can probably guess who's running this particular list on Team England. But we've got a fairly standard Iron Hills Erebor list here with Dane, some dwarves, Thorin, some dwarves. And then instead of your ballista, which is what you used to see, now that's a bit more expensive. So instead you're seeing Legolas with some various Mirkwood auxiliaries like cavalry and sentinels. Seems like a pretty solid list. A bit small, but I think when played well, it can do quite well. And it'll be interesting to see how it can deal against some of the Angmar and Mordor and heavy shooting lists that will be playing against it.
Okay, Mick?
Well, next up we have a 31 model Minas Tirith list led by Aragorn, King Galazar, and Gandalf the White on Shadowfax. Both warbands have like 11 Fountain Guards and some additional troops like a Knight of Minas Tirith and a couple of Citadel Guards. So it's only 31 models, and it's sort of like a put all of your eggs in one basket sort of list of Aragorn gets in and gets enchanted and helped by Gandalf and hopefully smashes things to pieces. So I find this one really fun and interesting. I would love to see how it plays out.
List number 4 it has the Witch King as the leader, and it has 9 troops. So it has, was that 8 ring wraiths with it? And the ring wraiths all have 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate, and a horse. So this is the Legendary Legion. Yeah, this is the Black Riders Legion. So interesting that they're taking the Black Riders Legion to the ETC. The Witch King himself has 3 might, 1 will, 2 fate, a horse, and Morgul Blade. So should be really one of those lists where if you take it, it'll be so not necessarily unexpected because they see that it's a possibility, but it'll really put you off because not many people probably go against this very often.
Yeah, it's definitely.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say it's definitely an interesting list, and seeing. I think everybody in this panel knows who is taking this list, and I think, with how they play ring wraiths, it's definitely going to be a very interesting one to see on the tabletop.
I was just going to add that, like, this is one of those lists which actually works quite well with the pairing system because you can put it forward as your first, and then if your opponents have, let's say, one list that this really suffers against, and they put it forward to play for you to pick, you're going to pick something else. So you actually get to avoid your worst matchup with this if you try to like game the pairing system a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then this is the last list for England.
Yeah, so it looks like a fairly standard Dol Amroth list. You'll generally see 2 structures, which would be either 4 heroes and some troops, maybe like 40 of them, or this one here where there's 3 heroes instead. Going a little bit lower on the might and not taking Angbor the Fearless, and instead just taking as many models as possible. And 47 models with a list like this, I think, could be quite scary.
That's a huge number for all this high volume banner and everything.
Actually, I see Angbor is down there, so it is actually 4 heroes.
There is.
Yeah, there's
I just didn't see the divider there.
Yeah,
looks pretty strong, especially with 4 heroes.
Yeah, didn't Jay just win the GT with something like this at 700 points? So it makes me wonder who's going to be playing this list.
Yeah, it could be anyone really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks strong.
That's Team England. And again, for anybody that's listening, these lists are available. If you go into like the Facebook group, they'll have that posted there. You can just click on the link there. Or if you want to watch along with us talking about it, then I recommend going to the YouTube video so you can actually see what the lists actually are. But we'll move on to the next team, which is Team Scotland. So we'll go over that now.
Scotland 2.
Scotland 2.
Oh, there's 2 Scotland teams?
Oh, yeah. So essentially, there are 24 teams at this tournament, I think from 11 countries. And there's like 2 world teams as well, which are kind of like international teams.
Okay. So Team Scotland 2, Mick.
Cool. So we have a 42 model Azog's Legion with Azog's Hunters. So there's like Azog, there's like Goblin Mercenary Captain, Thimble, Yaznek, Narzug. Yeah, pretty standard, solid looking list for the 2 Azog lists. Well, Azog armies and the Green Alliance.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like there's like no auxiliary units in there, which I would expect. There's no warbats, there's no berserkers, nothing
That's
like
true,
that.
Yeah.
They've gone for more heroes, which I think is an interesting choice, but not one I particularly agree with when they already have so many might with Azog. But it'll be interesting to see.
Should be fun. And I always like Azog's Legion. I think it's always a fun list to go. The next one is the Kingdom of Moria. It has 44 troops, and the leader is Balin. So dwarves, which pretty interesting. It's Balin with some Khazad Guard, a few Dwarf Warriors, an Iron Guard, some Vault Warden teams. You know me, I love Vault Warden teams. Floy with some Dwarf Warriors, a couple of Shield, a couple of Bow. Khazad Guard, Iron Guard, Vault Warden teams, King's Champion, Dwarf Warriors again, Khazad Guard, Iron Guard, and he has a Ballista with a Siege Veteran and crew. So, 44 models for dwarves, always good. My biggest thing with dwarves is always their might. So he has, was it 8, I believe? So wait, how much does Floy have? 1?
No, yes, he's on 1, yeah.
Yeah, so he only has 6 might, but the veteran has 2. Is that correct?
Veteran has 1.
Well, veteran has 1. Okay, so he has 7 might technically, but that one's attached to the ballista. So we'll see. So, but essentially 6 might in combat, that might hurt him a little bit. But I always like to see the dwarves, so it should be fun. Go into the next list.
Yeah, so fairly standard riders of Theoden. So we've got all the good stuff, Theoden, Aemir, Durnhelm, Deerwine, Gamling. So they clearly wanted to take as many of the striking heroes as they can, and then take Gamling for that might regeneration effect. Going for the Captain of Rohan over something like Elfhelm. And I actually don't mind this choice. The captain gets all the buffs from Theoden and the charging bonus in the free heroic combats. So I think this is a very solid list. Obviously, we've seen many people do well with this sort of thing. So yeah.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, next up we have a Last Alliance sort of list of 37 models led by Gilgalad, Círdan, and Isildur. So kind of a fairly standard split of some high elves with some Numenorian warriors. So yeah, the heroes essentially Gilgalad, Círdan, and Isildur. You get your buffs, you get your protection from shooting. You have several. Actually, how many bows do you have? Like 5 here. Pretty much 5 bows. Yeah, I mean it's pretty solid in combat. It's not very big, but yeah, it's pretty much what you get from Last Alliance sort of forces.
And the last list for Team Scotland 2, it has 55 troops. And the leader is Suladan. It has Suladan with some Rajam warriors, a few Serpent Guard, Watcher of Karna with the Twin Blades, and some Abrakan Merchant Guard. It has the Betrayer on horse. I'm always a horse fan myself, personally. Harajam Warriors, Serpent Guard, Watcher, Abrakan Guard, Raza, which I know some people have some mixed opinions on Raza. Harajam Warrior, Serpent Guard, Serpent Rider, and Merchant Guard, and then a Taskmaster, which we don't see as much anymore, with some Warriors, Serpent Guard, Watcher, Abrakan Guard. So 55 models. I'd have to do the math on the bows, but I'm sure there's close to half.
There's 22.
22 bows.
Yeah.
Only 22? What?
Yeah,
they should definitely have more.
Yeah,
if they're optimizing this list. Because they should have 50% bows. Like if you're gonna make a Serpent Horde spam list.
Oh no, sorry, I miscounted. I think there is 25 actually.
25.
We've got 10 in the first war bond. Then there are 7 in the second war bond. Then there's 5 in the next one, and then there's 5 in the next one.
Okay, so close. Yeah. At least okay.
So pretty much.
Yeah, that's better. You definitely should be maxing your bows in this list,
and especially with the Betrayer being able to re-roll a lot of them, depending on how they position it, might be a lot more. So you can have a lot of re-rolling shooting attacks, plus with the amount of numbers you have, and then the Suladan banner, and then some magic, and so it's a decent list. You have a lot of models; it'd be tough to get by.
It's 27 bows, so it's plenty.
27. Okay, so he has the halfway point. But that is Team Scotland 2. We'll go into Team Wales now. So this is the first Team Wales list, so I'll bring it over to Evan.
Okay, so we've got 49 models, which is obviously really nice. So we've got Khamûl on horse, the Undying on horse, Gurutz and Grishnak. And then a bunch of Morannons, some Black Guards, some Black Numenorians, just a mix of Mordor stuff. I'm going to be honest, this is the first list that I see where I go, I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to do here, because I think Khamûl is most effective on a Fell Beast when he's able to get those kills and regenerate that will. And he's just not on a Fell Beast. I'm also not a huge fan of Black Guard. I think you've got plenty of troop hitting power, at least, with your Morannon orcs that I assume have axes. And I mean, Gurutz and Grishnak are fine, but like you have no hitting heroes, and you're relying heavily on your Black Guard, which aren't very good troops. So sure, you've got a lot of models, but I'm not entirely sure I like this list that much. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I'm not really sure also why the Undying is not the leader. Why Kamul is the leader
Yeah,
instead.
that's a
Oh,
really
yeah.
At least the Undying would survive.
Like
Yes.
I don't know about you guys, but this definitely sticks out to me as like a dummy list that somebody
Yeah,
threw up in a
possibly.
hurry just to they're like, oh, we need a fifth fake list, so we took this one.
Yeah, I agree with you on pretty much everything. You know, the Fell Beast is almost an auto include for me personally, and then like Nick said, the Undying not being your general makes why bring him then? You know, I get that he has will, but there are a lot of casters that have will that have a better function. But his point is to be the leader. So very very interesting first list. Nick, you want to go in the second?
So the second one is Army of Gothmog, 50 models. With Gothmog, Goroth, Gothmog's Enforcer, Orc Shaman, and Zagdush. All of these guys are leading pretty much a 50-50 split. Well, actually more like a 70-30 split of Moranon Orcs and then Mordor Orcs with like shields and spears and stuff like that. So it's basically all infantry. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all you can get from Army of Gothmog. Just like your 5 heroes and then as many Moranons and Orcs that you can get.
Yeah, only thing I would change is I think Guritz is much more beneficial to this list than Gothmog's Enforcer because he can keep
true.
all your
That's
warbands together and gets a heroic march that Gothmog does not have to call in case you want to move 12 inches with the drum. But other than that, yeah, there's not much you can do otherwise.
And maybe they took the drum as the reason to not take Guritz, but I think the coming out together is definitely a reason for that. We'll go into the next one. It is, and again, so a lot of troops for Wales, 49 models, and
This
it has.
is
Did I go to
the same list.
Did they put the same list?
That is some weird formatting.
Well, this
Oh,
Go right again.
One sec. I think I heard something from Dave that there was a mistake in one of the countries. So I think there may be like I think Dave may have put up the wrong list.
Okay, so this is the same list, so we don't know about the. So we'll go on to the next one.
Yeah, so there might just be some sort of formatting error that went up.
Okay, so again, 48 models. They seem to be going with the theme here. A Mordor list. It has the Witch King with the horse and crown at 314.3. Some Black Numenorians, a Morgul Knight, Moranon Orcs, Black Numenorians, regular Orcs, the Dark Marshal on horse, Black Numenorians, Morgul Knight, Moranon Orcs, Mordor Orcs, and then Shagrat with all of his equipment and Moranon Orcs, and then a couple of Orc trackers. Really interesting because you don't see many Morgul Knights taken in. So I'm happy with it. Those are my favorite cavalry in the game. So again, this is more suiting to like these are, I don't know, maybe I have these are interesting lists because I wouldn't expect these lists at the tournament. So like the Dark Marshal on horse, and because we know he has the fight 6, so that might be more helpful in a Fell Beast kind of situation, but especially with the banner effect, and then the Witch King on horse as well. So very very unique list.
Yeah, I hate to be overly critical, but like these lists seem so weird because this is the third Mordor list we've gotten. We can definitely see like between these 3 lists that they're running out of options, but you know, instead of maybe trying to take a different list, they're just going full Mordor. And I'm not entirely sure about some of the choices here, but I think this is probably the most solid list we've seen so far.
Yeah, because
there's a lot of orcs in Wales, it seems, to go around. Yeah.
So that's where Mordor is.
No kidding. They definitely have their preferences, that's for sure.
Okay, so we'll move on to the final list. So
oh no, it's not a Mordor. so we got Bard, Sigurd and Tilda, Gandalf, Bilbo, Militia Captain, and a lot of militia. There's 54 models here. So yeah, so this seems like your standard Lake Town list.
Yeah, I'd argue slightly more evil than the normal Mordor list, but okay, sure.
So Wales coming in with the theme of we're going to take a whole bunch of models kind of concept.
there's over 200 models between
you've seen
people.
Nothing left. You've seen nothing yet. There's one. There are like 3 of the lists are over 70 models.
Okay, so this is Wales. So we'll move on to Team France, or World Team France.
Yeah.
World Team France. Evan, if you want to go over this one.
Yeah, so just to point out, so there are 2 world teams at this event.
Okay.
So I was talking to Dave about it earlier, and it seems, yeah, so the 2 world teams, even though one is called World Team France, they're just like it's players from all over the place. So I don't actually know the team composition of World Team France.
So then why would I don't know if you know why would they call it World Team France if majority of the players aren't?
It almost seems to me that maybe there's like 2 French players in it, or even three French players and someone else. I don't know.
Because you think you just call it World Team 1 and World Team 2, right? Like that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I guess that's a personal thing. I just don't understand. But Evan, if you want to go over the first list.
Yeah. So very standard Isengard, Saruman, Lurtz, and Gorolf, all 3 good heroes. Where's Grima? Hold on.
Does not look
he's
like he has
hiding behind all the orcs. Yeah, no, he's not here.
He's not
yeah,
here?
That's obviously, we've talked about this. Huge mistake. 25 points. You should always be taking Grima. But other than that, because I was looking at this and like, this is a really solid list. I didn't have anything really to say about it. It's just super solid. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Grima.
I like the double Greebane.
Yeah,
No,
definitely.
I agree with that. I think if you add Grima, you lose some points there. It's very. I wouldn't want to come up.
I think it's really cool. This, yeah.
Yeah, it should be. And again, 44 models, so you have a good amount of numbers there as well. Going over to the next list. So 56 models. We're getting into the high territories here. Goroth is the captain. And I think I know why he put Goroth as the captain. It's because he has the ability to not die because he can sacrifice an orc to take the wound. That would be my guess as to why he's the leader. But like I said, 56 models. Morannon orcs in his war band, Zagdush with Morannon orcs, Kardush with a drummer, some orc warriors and some trackers, one with a banner. A ring wraith on 2 might, 1 fate. So I'm going to assume he didn't add any more will.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. A couple Black Numenorians, some Morannon orcs, and an orc tracker on Warg. That seems to be a trend is because of how cost effective he is, the orc tracker on Warg.
Yeah.
Another ring wraith, same thing, 2 might, 1 fate. Black Numenorians, orc tracker on Warg, Morannon orcs. So again, a lot of models. And I got now ring wraiths because they're heroes of I can't think of the term.
Fortitude here.
Yeah, fortitude. I couldn't think of the name of it. But I think Goroth is the leader because he can't technically die if he sacrifices an orc. So I think that's the whole reason behind that would be my guess. But not a ton of hitting power here. It's mostly just Goroth there to do damage.
Yeah, but at the same time, ring wraiths are able to like slow down enemy heroes. So yeah, your numbers are huge. You have a pretty solid line.
So it's a defensive, it's almost like an attrition game kind of in that regard. All right, next list. We'll go back to Evan, if you want to go over
that. Sure. So another Mordor list. There's been a lot of these. So here I'm actually noticing a lot of similarities with my list that I ran a lot last year. So King on Felbeast 343. Black Numenorians, Morannons, trackers, orcs, that sort of thing. Gurits, a basic wraith. I opted for the Shadow Lord when I was playing a list like this, and then a captain instead of Gurits, and then the Spider Queen, with 2 fell wargs and a bat swarm. Seems like a pretty solid list. I'd recommend probably going a bit heavier on the Black Numenorians. I think this list really benefits from having an entirely terror line. I think otherwise this list might crumble a bit too fast before the heroes do as much damage as possible. But I think it's a solid list. Could really do well.
All right. So 42 models. So we're getting into the low territories here at this point.
Yeah, this is teeny.
Yeah. Mick, if you want to go over this one.
Sure. So another Mordor list: Rosgush, Gorbag, Ringwraith, Orc Captain, and the Dark Marshal and Felbeast. So yeah, these guys are leading some Bat Swarm, Fellwargs, Orc Warriors, Black Numenorians, just a good mix of everything. There's even a Morgul Stalker that Tim is gonna love here. It's only 40 models though, without much of a fighting power outside of like Rosgush and the Dark Marshal, who probably doesn't really necessarily want to fight that much. So yeah, I'm not really sure about this list.
I'm struggling to understand why the Orc Captain exists. Like you already have March with the Ringwraith.
Exactly.
And You only have one heroic strike, and it's on a hero with strength 4 and no +1 to wound. And you've only got 40 models. Not sure about this list.
Yeah, I mean, you could have just filled up the war bonds and not have the orc captain and just save the points on there.
Okay. And finally, the last one, 44 models. It's got Legolas on horse, some Mirkwood elves, some couple Cav models, a Wood Elf Sentinel, Erebor Reclaimed. It's got Glowing, Champion of Erebor, some Iron Hills Dwarves, one with a banner. It's got Dwalin, Champion of Erebor, with some Iron Hills Dwarves, and Dwalin is on Goat. And then Lake Town Militia Captain with some Lake Town Militia. So get some numbers up there, get a couple bows in there. It's interesting. I mean, you've got Dwalin and Glowing to do the damage, and Legolas can snipe / do a little bit of damage himself. And then the militia gives you the march, and then also boosts the numbers. It's interesting. You have, what was it, 12 bows plus Legolas, so it could do some damage. But what I think is really interesting so far, and I'm sure there's plenty of lists, so we'll see it, but not much blinding light. So bows might actually be really important in this.
Yeah, because something happened to Galadriel apparently.
Yeah, something weird. Yeah, it's weird how this list is green, but they've opted to benefit from 0 of their army bonuses. They haven't taken Thranduil, so they don't benefit from Thranduil's halls. Haven't taken Bard, which is, that's fine. Obviously, they wanted just cheap Lake Town militia. And they didn't take Dane in the Iron Hills list, which gives you quite a big bonus. So it's interesting that while they chose to preserve this alliance matrix, it really doesn't get them anything. So maybe it would be better if they looked for some yellow allies instead that might benefit this list more.
So that is Team World France. And now we're going to move on to Team France. So Evan, if you want to go over this.
So Team France were second at the last ETC, I believe.
Okay, so high expectations here.
And speaking of high expectations, this is a good list. There's not much to say about it. It's got Boromir, it's got Hurin, obviously a great combo with Boromir. Irolas, you get that might in to call the heroic march. And he's got bodyguard as well. And Legolas as the ally. You used to see Galadriel, Lady of Light. Obviously, those times have now passed. So I think Legolas is the ally of choice at this point. And they've got a decent number of guards at the Fountain Court. Yeah, just a really solid list. Good numbers. 38 is fine.
Yeah, very, very solid. Plus 14 shots as well. So plenty.
All right, Nick.
So the next one here we have Mordor with Dark Denizens of Mirkwood. So this is another one of those pretty solid lists. So it's the Undying, this time as the general on Fell Beast, leading some Moranons, Black Numenorians, and Orc Warriors. Then we've got Gurids with a similar warband. Then we've got Shadowlord on a horse, leading some Black Numenorians and Orc Warriors. And then we've got the Spider Queen and a Bat Swarm. So this is 40 models here with 2 Ring Wraiths, a Fell Beast, a Spider Queen, Pall of Night from Pall of Darkness from the Shadow Lord, March from Gurids. Yeah, it looks really solid, really strong.
Yeah, the only thing I can even think to complain about really is the fact that the Undying is the leader and on a Fell Beast. Seems to me like it might be more useful to put the Shadow Lord on a Fell Beast so the Undying can stay safe on the horse in the back. But that's really the only thing that sticks out. The rest of it seems super solid, super strong.
I agree with that one. All right. Next is interesting, 18 troops.
Oh, I love this.
It is Elrond, Master of Rivendell, on horse with heavy armor. He has some Rivendell Knights, Círdan with some Rivendell Knights, and Aragorn Strider. So really interesting because, again, when we always talk about Rivendell Knights, you want things to be mobile. So he's really going to try to sit back, take the blinding light, and shoot at you and then move from there. Because obviously Círdan won't really be able to keep up with the army if they have to move. So I understand where he's going with this, but it'll be really interesting to see how this person does if they take this list. So
I mean, I think it's a really good choice because I've seen Ed a few years ago playing with a similar list where he had a Galadriel, Lady of Light, and she was just like running behind. But essentially, you you actually have your knights stationary so often because of the rerolls that Círdan is actually okay to keep up.
Well, that makes
Yeah,
sense. You
and
sit back.
even if they're moving half to shoot, Círdan
then
moves
Círdan's
6 inches,
fine.
they move 5. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're good.
Okay. Next list, Evan.
And actually, with the Aragorn, they're actually marching for free as well. So
Yep, that's true. That's another
that's
good
great.
point.
So this is our first of many Angmar lists, I think. So we've got King, 3-14-3, Horse Crown, solid. Gullivar on his own, interesting choice to keep him on his own, but I guess you don't need really anything with him. 2 Barrow Wights and an Orc Captain on Warg. Varied solid list, 42 models, maybe a little lower than you might necessarily want your Angmar list to be, especially with the sheer amount of bows at this tournament. But double Barrow Wight with the Witch King and Gullivar means you're going to have terror everywhere. You've got a lot of power to shut things down, heroes down, and then with your specters, he's got what, 2 in here? You might want 3 or 4, but that would decrease your numbers even more. So 2 is fine. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, really solid.
Hey, Nick, last one.
So here we have a pretty standard, solid Survivors of Lake Town with Bard, Gandalf, Sigrid Tilda, Alfred, Percy, and Lake Town Militia Captain. So 56 models this time. Yeah, there's not very much to say. Just a lot of troops and a lot of the stuff that we've seen before in this game.
Yeah, interesting that they opted with the spears and the shields for the spearmen.
Well, so that's probably because if they're expecting a lot of bows and they're gonna be
yeah, but
2
they
bows.
do have blinding light though, which I guess
yeah.
is the counterpoint. So
They do.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, but I guess they thought, well, we've got enough numbers anyways, might as well make our troops harder to kill.
Yeah, and also I think they pretty much have filled up every war bond except the militia captain one. So actually no.
Gandalf can
Gandalf
take
still needs
3
2.
more.
Yeah, Gandalf can take a couple.
Yeah, and
they could get up to like 59, 60 if they so desired.
And they have 17 bows plus Bard plus Percy, so they have like essentially a minimum of 19 shots of blinding light. So
yeah,
it'll do pretty well.
I mean, every list from Team France is great here.
Yeah. So okay, so that is Team France, and we'll move into Team Ireland 1. So the first list it actually says who it's from, which I don't think they're supposed to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But okay, 45 troops. Witch King is the leader. 3 Might, 3 Fate. I think that's
I don't want to butt in too much here, Tim, but this is basically almost exactly the same list.
Yeah, it does look exactly
as what we recently reviewed.
Yeah.
So how about you just review the next one?
Yeah.
Like the only real difference was the Witch King had slightly more stats than the Angmar or Captain was on foot. Just sort of preferential choices.
All right, so next we have Michael Bradford. He has 46 troops. The Balrog, interesting, but he took the legendary Legion of the Balrog. So goblins, goblin captain, black shield shaman, 2 black shield shamans actually, and goblins. So he does have a drum as well. So he has the drum plus the black. Interesting. He has a couple Moria black shields, which you don't really see anymore because.
Well, yeah, they are just there for the black shield drum. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. All right, so a bunch of goblins in the Balrog Legend Edition. We'll move on to Evan.
This is interesting. So we've got this is really weird. So we've got
Denethor, this is cool.
her in the Tall, Radagast on Eagle, and Galadriel, Lady of Light. So yeah. Haven't ever seen anything quite like this before. Very small, 34 models. So they decided that screw it. They may have nerfed Lady of Light. I'm going to get her in here anyways. And to do that, they took Radagast on Eagle, which is a model that you almost never see. seeing as people generally prefer Guahir over him. But yeah, I would be very interested to see how well this list does, because obviously it's got Denethor as the leader, which can cause some serious problems. But Radagast is again very interesting. They've got Huron in there to synergize with Denethor, and 34 models isn't awful. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's not huge either, though.
No, especially seeing as they've only got like 2 really big hitters and then Galadriel. Generally, with that low, you probably want 3, I'd say, plus Galadriel. So, not sure.
Nick.
All right, so the next one we have is Rivendell with Halls of Thranduil and the Fellowship. So we've got Elrond with Aragorn Strider. There are 12 Knights of Rivendell and Legolas. So an even smaller Rivendell Knights army, but with Legolas this time instead of Círdan. I kind of prefer the Círdan version, but I don't mind this hugely.
Anduril in this, that's interesting. You don't see
there's Anduril, yeah.
Really...
I would rather just have like a couple of extra knights, although you can't because actually no, you can because Elrond's legend. So yeah, I would definitely take just more knights.
Yeah, I think in a list like this where you've got so much hitting power already with the Rivendell Knights, I don't think you need Anduril.
Yeah, especially when you're spending 47 points on your banner bearer as well. So like you're really keeping models low.
But all right, that is that, and then we'll move on to the last one. 32 models, Elendil, Glorfindel, and Círdan. Glorfindel has Athsloth in his armor. Elendil has his horse and shield, some Numenor, 1 Rivendell Knight, High Elf Warriors, and another Rivendell Knight and High Elf Warriors. Low numbers, but obviously you have 3 really good heroes to do what they need to do. 2 big hitters. Círdan can give... Enchanted Blades to either one of them, although Elendil hits pretty hard as is, so Enchanted Blades will pretty much almost be given to Glorfindel. But then he can also Blinding Light, and I think the other thing that'll be really huge for this list is the Terror Bubble, because there seems to be a lot of orcs, and from what we've seen.
This is a cool list against Angmar, because Elendil's protected, Glorfindil's protected, and then Círdan gives you protection and terror. I would not want to be Angmar playing against this.
No. All right. So that is Team Ireland 1. Team Italy 2 is next. So Evan.
Goblin Town. Goblins.
103 models.
103 of them. Only thing that's even remotely significant to mention is that they've gone for 2 Goblin Mercenary warbands. That's basically it. It's just a lot of goblins.
Nick.
All right, this does not have 103 models. This instead has 3 Isengard Assault Ballistas. So this is the assault on Helm's Deep Leinster Legion. 49 models, basically 3 captains leading some orgs, and then 3 assault ballistas. Very strong, solid list.
Next one, 49 models. Assault on Helm's Deep, but they can do.
Is this a copy paste?
Yeah, is this the same one? I think it is.
That might be a similar problem.
It is allowed. No, it is actually allowed in the ETC to have the same list.
It might be an exact copy and paste.
As long as you don't overlap named heroes, which they haven't.
That's true.
All right, so all right, I'll just go over this one then. 52 models. Ooh. A lot of Rohan here.
Ooh, with Helm Hammerhand.
Helm Hammerhand on horse. Rohan warriors with throwing spears and shield. A Rohan warrior with banner, shield, and throwing spear. Then we got a Rohan captain on horse with. Then he has some Rohan warriors with throwing spear, an outrider, a royal guard. Rohan captain, same thing. It looks like, and then another Rohan captain with the same thing. So a lot of models, a lot of might. Some mobility in there with a couple of horse riders, and yeah, should be pretty interesting. And who doesn't like to play with Helm Hammerhand? I mean, we talked about that, I think, in the last episode. So good.
Yeah, list. there's a specific Italian player who plays this list very consistently. I think he went to the GT, didn't he, Mick? And
I was another
did,
GT
did really
recently.
well. But yeah, interesting that they'd be playing for Italy too, but I don't know how they organize their teams. But knowing the person, I think this list is going to do very, very well.
Evan, last one.
Oh, this is my style. 71 models. But it does have Lake Town in it. We've got
I think
Master
I know who
Braga
this
Alfred.
is.
Yes, I also know who this is. Obviously, they've done very well with a list like this as well. So there are Lake Town Guard, more Lake Town Guard, more Lake Town Guard, more Lake Town Guard. There's a ton of them, and then they sort of went, well, we don't want to fully hoard out, so they took in Legolas and just a bunch of Mirkwood elves, some Mirkwood cavalry, a sentinel in there, and really there is no hero hitting power. There's no real troop hitting power either. It's just 71 models with a boatload of might points. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this goes.
And that is Team Italy 2. We're going to move on to Team Northern Ireland 2. So, Mick, you can start us off.
Right, so here we have the Depths of Moria Legendary Legion. So there's a Balrog, some Captain, and a couple of Moria Black Shield Shamans. Yeah, pretty
I think
standard.
the only difference we see is that they have a Moria Goblin drum instead of a Black Shield drum.
That's right, yeah.
Compared to the other one we reviewed.
Yeah, 46 models with a Balrog.
Yep.
Next one. Ooh, a lot of Uruk-hai showing up, which I don't know. We at least
a lot of ballistas.
Yeah, this is another repeat. There's like very, very minor differences, but triple ballista.
Yeah.
So if we keep count, is that the third one we've seen so far?
Yeah. Well, was it one of them? We're not sure if one of them was a copy.
Oh yeah.
On the stage.
Yeah. True.
So we'll say third though. We'll assume two of them are taking the same. This one is 27 models, so pretty low for Rohan. It's got Theoden on. We're gonna assume everybody, unless I say otherwise, we'll assume they have what they normally should have. Aemir, Darewine, Elfhelm, Durnhelm, and a bunch of riders with a couple Royal Guard. A lot of heroes in this one.
Very interesting that there is no gambling in this list.
Yes.
Because I think generally lower points Riders of Theoden lists drop gambling because they don't have enough heroes to really benefit from it. But I think with this many heroes, you probably want to fit gambling in. So it's interesting that they didn't take it.
I don't really love gambling that much, to be fair. Like, you only get the benefit once you're out of might. And like with this many heroes, you just like burn all your might, and then one hero is gonna get some might.
They have Durnhelm, so they're calling free heroic actions every turn. And you still want your might to be able to call heroic combats and might up combat rolls. But
true, but you can only regain one per turn. And how many turns is the game gonna last if you only have 27 troops?
All right, Evan, next one.
It's the Necromancer Legendary Legion. I think the only thing that we can really review is the very odd decision to take Khamûl in this list. Seeing as Khamûl is, we've reviewed the ring rates before, right?
Yeah.
Khamûl is by far the worst one, just because they have -1 to win the fight in every fight. But other than that, there's not much to say about this. It's the Necromancer Legion, and we'll see how it does.
Mick, last one.
So here's Halls of Thranduil with Survivors of Lake Town, 35 models. We've got Thranduil mounting a horse with heavy armor. So no extra sword or no crown or anything like that. 120 points, which is very interesting, confusing. Then Legolas leading some cavalry. Well, so 2 cavalry from Mirkwood and some Mirkwood elves, and then Gandalf the Grey leading some Lake Town militia. I'm not so sure about this list.
Yeah,
Feels like feels like the bluff one.
It's small. It's got a very suboptimal Thran wheel. It doesn't have a lot of might points, and the might points that it has are on characters that you want to be saving their might points for other things. Gandalf is okay, but he doesn't really fix that many of the army's weaknesses, except with the crippling weakness to shooting that they have, which is increased by the fact that they only have 4 bows plus Legolas.
I feel like you have to get rid of some Mirkwood elves to get more militia in there.
Yeah, none of the militia have bows. They didn't max out their bow limit on the elves. This is probably the list that they're not taking.
Yeah.
Okay. And then moving to Team France 2. First list, 42 troops, Witch King of Angmar. Looks like a Mordor list with Dark Denizens of Mirkwood. Witch King 3/13/3, Fellbeast, Crown of Morgul. So lower will than probably we normally see. Usually 14 to 15 is the minimum when you take them on Fellbeast, so interesting. 4 Black Numenorians, Morannon Orcs, Orc Warriors, 1 with a banner. Nazgul 2/8/1. I'm assuming he means Ring Wraith, because I think the Nazgul is technically the okay. Black Numenorian, Morannon Orc, Orc Warrior, Guritz, same thing. Kardish, same thing, and then the Spider Queen with 2 Fell Wargs. This is a really underrated. I am a huge fan of the Fell Wargs personally, because they can move 10 inches and they ignore Elven Cloaks, and I think especially because they're Strength 4. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they can go into woodland terrain. Is that? No, they can't. Okay.
Half speed, so
half
5
speed.
inches.
Well, I mean, they technically can, but they don't get any benefit or anything like that.
Okay, so but I'm always a fan of the Fell Warg for 8 points because it's Strength 4, it moves 10, it can ignore Elven Cloaks. I think they're very underrated.
Yeah.
But
I don't understand Kardush in this list though. I don't know about you guys, but they have a lot of Black Numenorians. They already have a bunch of heroes and troops, and they also have chosen not to take a Bat Swarm, which I think is part of the reason you're taking the Spider Queen in the first place, to be able to get the Bat Swarm in there without having to take Razgoosh, who isn't always the best choice. So I'm not sure if I like Kardush in this list. I think you need a Bat Swarm and then as many guys as you possibly can get.
Yeah.
Maybe that was just because Witch King has quite low will points, so you can eat Kardush with him later on.
If you drop Kardush, you can get more will points.
I mean, you could. but what if you wanted a shaman?
Yeah, not sure how necessary it is, seeing as they already have plenty Black Numenorians. But
yeah,
I guess that's just my opinion.
Okay. Move into the next one.
So this is a Serpent Horde with Farharad, 36 models at 800. We've got Suladan, the Herodrim King, both of them mounted. The king is with a war spear, a Mahud King, and another Mahud King. So there's 4 mounted heroes, 12 half trolls in total, a couple of Watchers of Karna, and then a lot of Herodrim warriors, like about 18 of them. So very solid front line from all the Mahud trolls. From the half trolls, and then 4 pretty good fighting heroes, especially the 2 Mahud Kings with Suladan as the banner. I mean, it's small, but if it gets the right matchup, it's just gonna wreck it. It's just gonna shred it to pieces.
Plus the banner for the half trolls will be nice for them to do that. All right, next one. Doesn't say, it says army break is 19, so we'll say close to 40 models, I think. Galadriel, so this is a Lothlorien list. Interesting. Well, Lothlorien with other things. So Galadriel with 3 Lorien elves with shield and spear, some with bow, 4 Galadrim court guard. Legolas with Mirkwood Knights, Dane on boar with some Iron Hills warriors, about 11. One with a banner, and the Master of Lake Town with 12 Lake Town guard. 40 models. I mean, you got magic and you have some fight 6 in there for the troops. Legolas to snipe out, so you have blinding light with that as well. Dane to do some damage, and then Master for. It's interesting. I don't know that I've ever seen a list like this before, so it's a very unique one.
Well, I've made lists like this actually. I think this is 38 models, if I'm counting correctly. I like it. It's very soupy, obviously, in the sense that it's got 4 different factions in here. Galadriel obviously provides the blinding light and a very safe leader with the Galadrim court. Legolas is great. Dane is great with his heroic march, and he's your main hitter in the list. Iron Hills warriors are obviously super solid. And then the Master allies in with Lake Town Guard to be able to boost up your numbers. Only thing I'm really confused about is why there's no Alfred in here.
Yeah.
I think there probably should be.
But
yeah.
All right.
Unless there's like a Survivors of Lake Town list later on that has Alfred in it.
We'll skip this one. Another Legendary Legion.
Oh well. No, it's not. Let's not skip it because there is a variation.
Oh, okay.
There is a demolition team here.
Oh yes, there's 3.
Yeah, so
there's 3 of them.
No. That's the 3 models.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
3 models of the
3
team.
models
yeah.
in. Okay.
So this one has 2 ballistas with a demolition team instead of the 3 ballistas that we've seen before. But yeah, otherwise it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Not sure I like this variation that much. I think you want as many ballistas as possible in this sort of list.
Okay. Next one.
Oh, and here we go. This
yes.
is exactly what we were talking about. Here is Alfred, and that's why they didn't take him in that other list. That clears it up.
Yeah.
This is exactly the same thing that we saw in the past. They've even got the spears and shields on the Lake Town Militia.
That is Team France too. We'll move on to Team Poland.
Yes, let's
The
see
big guys.
All right, Mick, you can start us off.
So 3 ballistas, a demolition team,
and a demo team,
and some captains and some orcs. 44 models. Yes.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about this actually? Because I want to hear your guys' takes, because I think the 2, besides that one list with 2 ballistas that I think we all agree probably isn't as effective as the other ones. Would you go the standard that we've seen, which is 3 ballistas and just as many guys as possible? Or would you go this route with 3 ballistas and a demo team? I'm actually inclined to say this route just for the extra versatility on a demo team. But
I think so too.
Tough.
Like you've got plenty of models already anyway. So like, what are you changing? Like the demo team is 3 models for 80. Otherwise, you're getting 8 warriors for 80. So really, it's 5 models extra, but you don't have the demo team. So I think at this point it's fine.
I think because the Uruk-hai warriors are the gold standard of warriors, because they kind of fit every scenario, because they're fight 4, strength 4, defense 6. You know, they can get banner, they have pikes, they kind of cover that front line. I think I'd probably agree to go with this because you want more versatility in being able to cover as many things as possible. So I think I'd probably go with this because the Uruk-hai captains can hold their own, and you have a bunch of warriors in the front that can just hold the line while these ballistas do their thing.
Also, if you look at this list, 2 of the captains have crossbows on them as well, and one of them has a shield. So that's the captain with shield is leader.
Yeah,
and the captains with crossbows add up to 2 crossbows on heroes, and then what, 7, 11, think 13 crossbows 15, on warriors.
Yeah,
so 15 crossbow shots plus 3 ballistas plus the demolition team.
Ow.
Yes.
that's gonna hurt. Okay, so we'll go into the next one, and again it's the same thing.
It's that's a copy paste.
Now Mick, maybe you can explain this to me, because I know that they said you can't take the same named heroes, but do you agree? Do you agree with the concept that you can have the same list?
So that's the thing. I think there's been a discussion about legendary legions here about for the ETC, because I don't think going forward this should be allowed. But
yeah,
I don't think anyone addressed it before.
Rule is to prevent you from taking the exact same overpowered list like 5 times. And multiple teams at this point have taken the exact same legendary legion because they don't have named characters.
Well, that's the thing. Like this Legion is actually super strong at 800 points.
Mhm. I just don't
super
agree.
strong at every points.
Yeah.
I just don't agree with the concept that you can copy and paste a list into, or theoretically, every single player could have the same list, right? Like that. How's that?
They could.
I get that they're in it to win it, and that there's not. That's got to be really considered in the next upcoming one. I think. Because,
I think they're gonna change that for the next year, because that's the thing. Like on the previous ETCs, there wasn't a thing such as Legendary Legion, because the previous one was 2019, so it was just the new edition. Then Legendary Legions came in, and there was the pandemic. So this is the first one since 2019, and so I don't think anyone addressed that question before submitting the list.
yeah, I think if they change that, it'd be fine. Because I don't know. I get the whole. They basically gamed their way around it, which people are going to do because why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
But again, I have no problem with if every single team took this Legendary Legion, but it should be limited to one.
Imagine like every player of every team takes this Legendary
Exactly,
Legion.
right? How does that go?
That would be the most unpleasant tournament ever. You'd just be rolling dice and seeing who rolls higher.
Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Evan, if you want.
Oh, it's not. No.
Oh, this is the fun one. Oh yeah, we were actually my father and I were talking about this list. It's got the Great Beast of Gorgoroth, which no one has ever seen in a competitive list ever.
They have actually at the last ETC there were several of them too.
Oh, I see.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
it's like an ETC meta.
Yeah, this is definitely some innovation here, because the obvious combo that they've got here is Saruman plus Grima and the Great Beast. Basically, Grima drains the might of the heroes so that the Great Beast can move first with heroic moves. Saruman, then this is the cool part. If the Great Beast is charged by a bunch of models, Saruman can Sorcerous Blast into that combat, knocking over all of the models except the Great Beast. So the Great Beast is basically an invincible ball of destruction.
Yeah.
You can't kill it. And then they've got a very, very cheap Witch King, 311-2, obviously still with the crown.
Double caster. So
and then Gurits just to get as many might points in there as you can, and then they just boosted the numbers.
It's 45.
Keep in mind
Solid.
that 10 of those models are on top of the Great Beast. So there's only going to be 35 models on the ground, really. So it's still not huge, but it's plenty big, and I think this could be a very, very interesting list.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's cool.
Mick, you get the next one.
So here we've got Gwaihir with Theoden, with Aldor, with Galadriel, and a mix of some warriors and riders and Rohan Royal Guards with some Galadriel warriors and Wood Elves. So this is a 37 model list here as an alliance between Gwaihir, Theoden, and the elves. I obviously like Gwaihir and Galadriel and all. I don't necessarily think this is as strong as the other 3 lists from Poland we've seen so far. But
it might be the Duff.
I don't know, unless one of the ballista lists is a dummy one. But yeah, I mean this is fine, but I don't love it.
Move on to final one. 40.
Oh, this one I do love.
Yeah, this one
is incredible.
Obviously very, very strong.
Okay, so 48 models. Glorfindel's the leader. You have Glorfindel on Asphoth. It does not have the armor though. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen Glorfindel without his armor before. So really interesting choice there. Círdan with Bilbo with the ring. 2 High Elf warriors. You got Legolas on horse with some Mirkwood Cav, a Mirkwood Elf, Wood Elf Sentinel. Then you have the Master of Laketown with a bunch of Laketown Guard, Braga with Laketown Guard, and Alfred with Laketown Guard. So
yeah, this is really, really strong. There's 12 might plus Alfred. You've got Glorfindel with Legolas, Master of Laketown for the banner, Bilbo for the ring. It's like a toolbox of everything that you could imagine wanting in a list.
Yeah, this list Yeah, it's got all the good stuff. And I think us here, we know who's playing this list.
Yeah.
And they're a very, very good player and also a very good list writer. And this is definitely a good example of that. They've got the Sentinel in there, they've got the cavalry models in there, they've got the 3 good Lake Town models, and they got up to 48 troops in total, which is very large for a list like this. Bilbo with the ring from Rivendell is actually a super underrated choice just because of how ludicrously cheap he is. He's only 40 points for the ring, which is incredible. And Círdan obviously synergizes super well with the Lake Town Guard. He makes them auto pass courage tests with their courage 2, which is great. He protects them from shooting, which they're obviously very weak to because they can't take shields. And he has his terror bubble as well. So super strong list.
Plus, again, he can make someone reroll wounds. I mean, that's a super. I mean, Glorfindel rerolling wounds is not fun to go against.
Yeah. I think dropping the armor isn't necessarily a bad thing with Glorfindel. It's an interesting thing.
I've never seen it before.
But I've never seen a monster ever try and brutal power attack Glorfindel, and I think with the blinding light and the ring and Legolas and all of that, you have enough protection that you don't necessarily need the +2 defense. So I think it's a perfectly functional choice. And
for me, it wasn't
down
about
to play style.
For me, it wasn't about the +2 defense. It's about the protection from magic.
No, that's not what the armor gives you.
Yeah, no, that's inbuilt.
What do you mean it's inbuilt?
The armor gives you immunity to brutal power attacks.
Yeah.
You get fortified spirit base. That was last edition.
That's okay. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but like, so the thing with Glorfindel here without armor, it could also be that whoever you play against, they will just assume that you can't brutal power attack him, and they just won't.
All right. So we're moving on to Team Spain. So Evan, if you want to start it off.
Sure. So very interesting list here. We've got Defenders of Helm's Deep, but not the 40 model standard that you'd usually expect at this points level. You've got 27 models and they just spammed heroes. So Theoden, good. Aragorn, fine. With Haleth, Legolas, Gimli, Gamling, and a Captain of Rohan. I don't know why he's in here. I think this list would benefit greatly from dropping the captain and just taking like 5 or 6 more troops to bolster up your numbers. I also think the fact that you have Gamling and Aragorn is with all those heroes is just an excessive amount of might. I don't think you necessarily need both of them. Yeah, other than that, I'm really not too sure about this list because it's just so small.
Mick?
So the next one we have is a pretty standard looking Isengard with Saruman, Grima, Lurtz, Gorulf, and Mauhur. 39 models at 800. Yeah, I guess you could just possibly have more models without Mauhur. But yeah, it's pretty normal, generic looking.
Mordor Serpent Horde. So again, there's some lettering that's a little off, so I can't really read that too well. I think it's 316.3. Is that what that looks like?
That looks right.
Yeah.
I think that's 316.3. He's got the crown and Morgul blade, but I don't know if he says, okay, he's on horse, I see. So it's kind of messed up there. 41 models, Witch King's obviously the leader, Black Numenorians, Morannon Orcs, Moranians, a Morgul Knight, love you. Gotta love the Morgul Knights when I see them. Gurits, some Blackguard, interesting. Moranians, Orc Trackers, and then Shelob, okay. Shelob with Suladan. Merchant Guard, Watchers with Twin Blades, Serpent Guard, Haradrim Raiders. Haradrim Raiders, really interesting with the Haradrim Raiders because anytime we see cavalry, it's almost always Serpent Guards or Serpent Riders. So that's really interesting to me that he did half because he wanted the bows, obviously. But
Mhm.
I almost always just prefer Serpent Riders because of the fight four. So I get it. I don't know. I always go with Serpent Riders because I'd rather just the bows be on ground. But I mean, it's not bad by any means. Blackguard's interesting because again, we always go back to the Blackguard because they're 12 points for a fight four model, and even though he's strength 5, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not a big fan of Blackguard in a competitive scene, so not the best to me, but I see the potential with this. But all right, we'll move on to the next one. Evan?
Very interesting semi last alliance list here. So we've got, I assume that's Gilgalad, but I guess we'll just call him Lad because that's what they named him.
The Lad High of the Elves.
Yes, Lad, High King of the Elve. So just full on Kingsguard with spears in that warband makes sense. Fight 6 is super handy. Not sure you want all of them necessarily to be Kingsguard though. Gildor with Noldor and Exiles. Círdan with some High Elves. Very good. And then Isildur with Shield in the Ring, no horse. And then some Numenorians. This list is kind of weird, to be honest. I don't necessarily know if I agree with all the choices. I think Isildur needs a horse because he's not always going to be with the ring trying to go and kill heroes. Sometimes he's just going to be trying to churn through troops. And without the horse, it's impossible for you to really do that. So don't really like that. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a huge fan of Gildor and the Noldor and Exiles in this list. I think this list needs to stick together and it needs to be very defensive. And Gildor and the Noldor and Exiles are not good at doing that.
If there's the throwing daggers on them, and more than likely because they have the spears, they're probably because they're defense 3. So obviously because they're wood elves, they can parry. But I mean, I don't know, 12 points a model. That's a lot for something that's defense 3. It's interesting. I always like Gilgalad. Gilgalad's probably my favorite good model hero to play because I just think it's cool to see Gilgalad. But we'll go on to Mick for the last one.
So this is the Vanquishers: Saruman the White, Galadriel, Gandalf, Elrond, and Radagast. Yeah, it's the Vanquishers.
Yeah, that
sure is.
All right, that was Team Spain 1. Now we're on to Team Sweden. All right, so Sweden is using Azog's Hunter and Azog's Legion, Bolg, Goblin Mercenary. They have a Warbat in there as well. 9 mercenaries. You got Narzug with some Hunter Orcs and a Fel Warg, and Fimble with some Hunter Orcs and a Fel Warg. They have, 11 bows. And some good and bad warriors, one with a spear and banner. 5 berserkers. Okay, so you got a little bit of a contingent there. I don't know. I feel like it could do okay. I think it has to be played very well to do well.
Yeah, I think the idea behind this was, okay, we take our hitter and Bolg, and then how many guys can we fit into this list?
Yeah, because 52
they've got 52.
Yeah.
Which for this type of list with Bolg is quite a lot. But I feel like they're missing out on some of the cool things you can get, like allying in with Dol Guldur and getting some of those paralyzed spiders, and that sort of thing. And I think you don't necessarily need that many Goblin mercenaries in this type of list as well.
I like the 5 berserkers though; those should do some good damage there with that. So it should be interesting. I think if it's played well, it can do well. So Evan, next one.
This is an interesting list. So we've got Denethor, Boromir with banner, Faramir, and Ingold. First things first. Why Faramir? Why not Hurin? Like, what is the point of this? Like, you're going from Hurin and Denethor, which have incredible synergy, with their 3-inch reroll special rule and the guarding the leader special rule to Faramir, who is actively debuffed by Denethor because he's already passing courage tests basically all the time anyways, because he's courage 6 up to courage 7 with the army bonus. And now he has to charge. So that really doesn't make sense to me. And then Ingold, I think you need Irolas because you have no march in the list otherwise, unless I'm mistaken and Faramir has march. But I don't think he does.
I have to say, Faramir is there to prove his worth.
Yeah. Well, looking at the qualities of this list, I don't know if he is going to be proving his worth. I mean, it's a solid list. Obviously, the point is you've got the banner, you've got a ton of models, and you're just going to spam them out. But I think the hero choices, at least to me, feel a little bit wonky.
Yeah, Faramir does not have march.
Yeah, so he has no march in this list, which is obviously a big problem.
Okay, Mick.
So this is a 43 model Moria with Durbus, Groblog, Druzak the Beast Scholar, and the Watcher in the Water. So there are some beasts here. We've got a couple of butt swarms, some giant spiders, wild wargs, and then just a lot of goblins with some prowlers, and the Watcher. So it's quite small for a goblin list at 43. Druzak obviously will be trying to make the beast stronger, but really it's a Watcher list, and yeah, I'm not sure what you could change really if you.
I'd say drop the Marauders is the first thing I'm thinking of,
because you could get a lot.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of them. So yeah,
and they're so expensive. Each Marauder is 6 goblins.
I mean, I would also just drop the giant spiders too and add more goblins. To be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to do Watcher, then you really need.
So I guess the philosophy is that their warbands are already full, but they also don't have march. So throw in a captain.
Captain.
Yeah.
Get a captain. And
you drop one Ward Marauder, there's the captain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So all right. Next one, 57 models. It's just another repeat basically of Survivors of Lake Town. Don't really need to go into it because we've been over it, but they have Bane. Bane's an interesting inclusion in this one. I don't know. Maybe you guys have. I've never seen Bane on the table.
I used him actually at Nova once. He did not do well. You look at it and you're like, oh, he's got the free heroic combats with Bard's bonus and all that. He gets up to fight 5, but he'd always seem to botch his heroic combats, and it would never end well. And I think just having a captain for the heroic march would be a much more solid and safe choice.
I don't agree with having Alfred by himself, because you already have 5 warbands without him. So why not throw him into Bard? I don't get that at all.
You have enough warband slots. You can drop some guys out of a specific warband and get a warband drop that way instead of risking Alfred.
He could fit him into Bard. I mean, I don't understand. I get wanting drops, but when you already have 5 warbands, they're not going to come up against many lists in which you need a 6th drop to outdo. So I don't know about that.
Yeah, and also in Maelstrom scenarios, Alfred just gets dropped in the wrong place and dies.
It's like, hey, I don't want Bard to have this 3 might. I don't know. It's interesting. All right, last one, Evan. Oh,
well,
yeah.
Black Riders. I think
Black Riders. Okay, so as we said, there's about 120 lists, so we did half of them. So we'll do the second half in the next episode to go over those. So keep an eye out for that episode as well. Just as a heads up, we have Facebook. If you're interested in looking on that, we post our videos there. If you want to put any comments there as well, we're checking everything. Any list suggestions for that you might be taking to a tournament or just a game in general, maybe just something you're thinking about, put that in the comments as well. We are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're interested in listening to us there. And I'm going to make a personal plug just because I know we have the platform. We are starting a group up in South Florida. So if anybody is in South Florida and interested in playing, please hit me up on Facebook and we can get you involved. We're about to start doing a game day monthly. So that's just a personal plug for me to try to get some more people playing. But as always, we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
All right. Take care.